team.
Yeah, bottom 50 for this guy, but sitting next to royalty, I feel good again.
And one of the top 50 Culliton warriors of all time. We're pleased to have Warren Bullock on. Bully, thanks for coming on.
Yep, pleasure.
Yes.
Razor.
And of course, Brian Hawley. He's a regular now. He's no longer last minute Larry. So we are just, grateful that you're able to make it full time now, and love to have you here, brother.
Well, it's always a pleasure to come out, and especially tonight. I just met Warren before we went on air, and of course I've known Dave for, I think actually the first time I met Dave, he was playing hockey with my brother.
Okay.
In the very first Christmas tournament, which would be 1974 or 5.
74, I think, wasn't it?
A couple of years ago.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
Back in the old rotary where the ice drops were rust.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, the roof would leak.
All the stalagmites, because they had no dehumidifier.
I just learned a new word.
That's
right?
a new word. Razor. That's what we love about.
Go and look in the dictionary. What's that?
Northwestern. His dad, probably one of the best teachers ever at Northwestern.
My dad. Oh, his dad. Yeah, I'm going to say
Your dad, too.
Well, my dad went to normal school, but he never became a teacher. But
your dad taught us some stuff. But
oh, yeah, but it wasn't
not something you learn at school.
He taught me how to drink Black Label. I know that much, but the old Rotary Arena, Bully. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of playing there, but it was a barn that we turned into an arena after the after the fair was over.
Yep. Once the cows were done pooping on it, then we just scraped up all the poop and froze it up. And I think, if memory serves, the first time we played the losers. This is pre-Zamboni, and the losers had to shovel.
Yeah.
Losers had to shovel the ice.
Right. Yeah. And the funny thing about it, they didn't have a dehumidifier there. So every September, the fair was at the end of September, and we put the ice in. Well, then this wooden beams would sweat, and like Davey was saying, the condensation would just drip onto the ice, and the brown from the wood, you would have these brown bumps, and we'd have to go there like an hour or before work. If you had a rental at 4, you had to go at 3 and chip all the bumps off. Like it was primitive. There was no glass around the end boards.
Ourselves. They had at the back, at the ends, they had chain link fence.
Yes.
Chain
I remember.
Fence. That's safe.
Would this have been the same rink that they did summer hockey school in?
No, that was Dufferin.
That was the old
Dufferin.
Dufferin. Yeah.
Dufferin, okay.
Yeah, Dufferin Arena.
Yeah.
And
definitely bad memories there. I did one summer stint in there with, I think Emmer was there, and I don't know if Rexy was, but Walker was there.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get out on a Friday night, and I come out, and I'm getting in, and I'm like, what's going on? Because, got hitting the engine, I'm getting nothing on. So Sox has been out there during a break. He's got mine all up on blocks.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And they're in the window killing themselves
right.
laughing or whatever.
Welcome to Stratford.
Welcome to Stratford.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep, those old yellow and orange sweaters they give the kids to wear while they were practicing. And I remember because I went on the ice with guys like John Wilson and I think Frank Barth as well.
Frank Barth was there. Are you talking about the hockey school?
Yeah, the hockey school. Yeah, I definitely remember Johnny Wilson.
I remember I did that stint for a summer, and we got these beautiful Adidas old track suits.
Oh yeah,
blue and gold. And Barney was my
your instructor,
my mentor. No,
okay.
I was working with it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we went out for a few beers after, and we're walking, because Barney lived up. We lived close by each other.
Right.
We're walking in, and Barney goes, "Okay, you're gonna go up to the counter at 7-Eleven." Barney's filling burgers into a pop cut in a cup.
A big gulp.
Yeah. I just got one big gulp here.
Shocking.
Classic.
Shocking.
Classic.
Oh, love
He's
Barney.
A gem. He's
he
a
is.
Great guy.
He is. Well, before we get going, folks, we want to talk about one of our biggest sponsors who we are forever indebted to, Reboot Repair, Stratford's best computer support and services, personalized IT solutions, hardware, software repairs, on-site, and business services. Folks, Cam and Dylan. Come and see them for all your computer repair needs. Why do I forget what the address is? It's
Erie Street.
Erie Street
Just,
Plaza.
you all know where Joe's Diner is.
Right?
Have some lunch at Joe's and then come on over here.
And then bring your computer or
Yeah.
cell phone next door.
Stop in
so-
for a haircut.
Yep.
Exactly.
Don't forget the Urban Barber. Stop in there. See all your needs here. And if you want to learn how to play the drums, you just got to
Right?
across the line.
Go
too,
across,
right? So
Long and McQuaid.
everything you ever needed, right? So absolutely. Yeah, Dylan's my own personal Jesus, man. I keep saying it over and over. The only reason we broadcast the Irish games is because of Dylan. Thank God for him, dude.
Well, I saw that he was there Saturday night.
Every week. He's
Yeah.
there every week now. Gives up his Saturday night so he can help us broadcast. And
Shout out to Dylan.
absolutely.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So we've got two great guys on tonight. One I played with, and Dave, you played with Bully the year before me. Bully grew up in Kitchener area, played your minor hockey in Kitchener, AAA. Tell us a little bit about your story growing up and how the hell did Dinny ever find you and bring you to Stratford?
I grew up playing AAA in Kitchener. Played my age most of the time, but up a couple of different times, including midget, where we had a really, really good team. Scott Stevens, Brad Shaw, a number of guys that went on to a lot of success and made a run to the Air Canada Cup National Championship game as a 15-year-old, which sort of gave a little bit of exposure for me. But, coming to Stratford, I think it's an interesting thing because I still, to this day, don't really know exactly where Denny would have, first seen me play. But my strongest guess is I had been playing. I went down and had played a year at Junior B in Belleville. And in 1983, there was a Junior B All-Star tournament that determined which league was going to represent Ontario in the Canada Winter Games.
Okay.
And so, this team here in the Midwest would have had Cullitons. I know Mark Maui played on that team.
Right.
So I'm sure you guys might know some other teammates that were likely to be on. I think McCutcheon probably was there from Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
He's a year older. And I had a pretty good week when we were there and had a really good game in the final against the Midwestern team.
Right.
And put up a few points in the game. We won 7-4. But when things weren't working out for me where I was the following year in the summer, I got a call. I wasn't really sure where I was, what direction I was going to take. And he just phoned and said he'd seen me play a bunch of times or whatever, was highly interested, and could we just meet and talk? And, he's a very, he's a very honest, trustworthy guy when you first speak to him, and you get the feeling right from the very beginning that, his word is his word. And,
Right.
he was quite excited about the kind of players we were bringing in and where, we might go as a team. And I think that's kind of how it started.
Because after Belleville, you said, I remember you telling me that
Henry
when we
Carr.
had lunch,
Yeah.
you played with some Henry Carr guys in the
Yeah.
Canada Winter Games, and they're going, Bully, what the hell are you doing in Belleville? You got to come and play for us.
Yeah.
And so then you had a pit stop there for a season, and Henry Carr led them in scoring.
Yeah.
But that was the Henry Carr after the 82-83 with the old Chuck, Maui,
Yeah.
all of that, where they won the All-Ontario. So you came the year after that.
Yeah, the team that won the whole thing and had the undefeated season, I was playing against those guys when I was in Belleville and with them on Team Ontario, when the Canada Winter
Right.
Games. So, that's where, I kind of got exposed to their players and their coaching staff, and they were kind of real keen on,
Right.
transitioning and moving there the following year. That's kind of how that worked out for sure. But, the following year, they were still loaded up pretty good at Henry Carr.
Right.
We had Scott Mellenby I played with when he was there. Nick Kiprios was there. Bobby Asenza was our
Wow, you guys had a good team.
Yeah, they're good. They were able to attract good players at
Yeah.
the time. They were having a lot of success, and you know how that goes when you're winning. Everyone's interested in being a part of it.
For sure. And are they a private school, or what were they?
It was a Catholic high school, is what Henry Carr is in name.
Okay.
But players didn't have to attend there. A lot of players didn't.
Right.
It was just sort of a catch-all for them, I think.
Gotcha.
That
And
was
then-
an amazing year. That Henry Carr team was just
Oh.
unbelievable. I remember that year. I worked at the arena that year.
The Cavallini brothers on there too.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember a lot of the names, but like I said, I was working at the rink that year, and there was an air of invincibility about Stratford at the time because
Right.
they had Eddie O and they had
LeVar.
But you think about that run.
Quillis. And,
Yeah, that run, because they had to go through London to get
Yes,
to Henry Carr.
Craig
And
Simpson.
Craig Simpson and Billington were both
Yeah,
on that
Craig
London
Billington were on them. It's unfortunate to say, but it would have been nice. Like Stratford, I think, was down to 1 or 2 regular defensemen. They were just beat up. They had LeVar playing defense. Mark LeVar was a right winger that came. The 3 of them came: Olchuk, Mark LeVar, and Dan Quillis. Who was a goalie. LeVar ended up going on and playing for the U.S. World Junior team and had a cup of coffee with Chicago in the NHL as well. But
Such a skilled player.
so good,
smooth,
so good. But they were just decimated with injuries. And I'm not taking anything away from Henry Carr, but Jim Samick, who played net for that Stratford team, he ended up being on one of the goalies for the top 50 all-time Culliton and Warriors. They lost 1 game in overtime, 2 games in double overtime, and then the 4th game, like they got swept, but the 4th game was a 1-goal game too. So hats off to Henry Carr. But
Absolutely, yeah. I'll never forget. Like I said, we in those days the tractor would come out at the center ice line,
right,
and up a ramp out the doors,
Yeah.
you know, and
right at the penalty boxes.
Yeah.
right beside
Yeah.
the penalty box,
Yeah.
where now the teams generally come out.
Yep.
And I'll never forget us opening the door after the goal was scored and Olchek chasing the ref down the last words I ever heard him speak in Stratford were, "You blew the damn game," because he was convinced that, I can't even remember the details. The goal he thought shouldn't have counted. But
Right.
in the end, I mean, everything Stratford threw at them, Henry Carr just threw right back. at
Right,
them.
yeah.
They are, or they were anyway, one of, if not the best team.
Well, our good friend Dean Simpson, his older brother Dave Simpson, not the Dave Simpson that played for the Knights, but there was a Dave Simpson that played with Olchuk and Rick Kelly and all of those guys in Stratford in 82, 83. So we were like, I think we were in Bantam that year when all of that was going
I
on.
believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and-
15. Yeah, might
So
have been
much
a
fun
Just-
to watch. It
it
was such
is.
a great run.
Well, and I got a front row seat just leaning on the boards in between the bench and the penalty. Well, no, it wasn't the bench. The benches were still over on the other side. weren't
Yeah,
they then?
it
Well,
well,
the benches on
yeah,
the
they
same
were
side
they
of
were
the
both
rink.
on
Were
the
they there
same
when you
side.
played?
The
Weren't
last
they?
our
I think
Donnie
Streetsville
Brook
had something to do with
when-
them moving the bench.
Well, it did. It was 100%. They were doing renovations the next year, and Bill Allman said to me after the Donnybrook that went on between you guys in Streetsville with Heafy and everyone in front of the bench, he said we just talked to the hockey club and agreed to move it to where it is now on the other side. So
Is that the one where Jeff Ernest is standing on the boards to climb? Yeah.
Oh, geez. Wait till we get into that. I apologize in advance, but folks, when we get into the 85, 86, talking about the St. Thomas series, like that is a gong show, how we were winning games 9-8, 8-7. And then, you don't think you can back that up with any more drama. Then we get into Streetsville. But I'm going through old clippings that I was showing Bully before we came on air, and I'm reading it. John Kastner, is an absolute encyclopedia, but I was reading his notes that he wrote in the paper, and I'm just like, oh, my God, this is such good, podcast stuff. So we'll definitely talk about it. But
I want to build back off of what Bully was saying. What a gem Denny is to be able to go out and find a guy who's he's played a couple of years at junior. He's not coming in as a rookie.
No.
He's coming in as a junior B player with experience.
he's a 19-year-old coming in for his first
a
year.
successful year in Henry Carr. I think you were maybe a point and a half a game in that.
I probably had my best numbers start of any season at the beginning of the year. It was just, funny how sort of things work out. But the opening night in that season, I scored 6 times in the opening game for them. So
Not a bad game.
So it's the most I've ever scored in a junior game. But
it took me a month and a half to do that.
And then about a month and a half into the season, I went foot first into the boards and just shredded every piece of tissue in my ankle. So I missed about, I think, 3.5, almost 4 weeks before I played again. And I came back, and I still think my line mate and I were still clinging on 1, 2, 3 in the league based on the start that we'd had. But I was playing with some pretty good players too,
Right.
so you had lots of help as well.
For sure. Davey, with you local boy, born and raised, you played AA hockey here in Stratford back when it was the Hub League and
Jesus, seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
right. What was it? The Hub League and
Hub League and
Hub League
OMHA,
and
OMHA. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
where you got to play Woodstock every year.
Right.
It seemed like before
Yeah.
you could go
Before you
anywhere.
could go out
'Cause
of
we were
the
the same
loop.
size.
I
Yeah.
still have a hatred for gold and yellow or gold and black.
Oh yeah.
Can't our biggest rivals were Woodstock and Waterloo.
Yeah.
I don't like the Steelers. I don't like the Bruins. I don't like the Penguins.
And Woodstock-
Anybody who wears, I won't wear black and gold.
Woodstock had the peanut character of
Sorry.
Woodstock on their jersey. Yeah, it was hilarious, and so we were the same way. Like two equal sized municipalities. We were always meeting in the league final, but. You played AA for Tom Fairburn, Harry Walker.
You know what? Great coaches in town, right?
Yep.
And I've coached a little bit since then, and
Yep.
and been able to get back to the rink, and you just relive some of the like. I still spend as much time as I can at the Almond. I always will. I love
Sure.
that place like home.
Well, you're there Saturday nights with the
Saturday nights
Irish,
with
right?
The Irish for sure. But I grew up playing minor hockey here. Got my first introduction to the junior B club here. A buddy of mine, Jim Wilson, and I we played together growing up. We were 7 or 8 years old. His brother John was playing for the junior B club. So
Yeah.
Jim, had asked me, "You want to come to the game?" And I'll never forget. It was my first game. We're sitting there, and the players used to come out where the Zamboni
Yes,
comes in now.
yes.
That's where the players used to go out
Yeah,
to get
it was it was a man door.
It was just a
It-
single
just a-
door.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's basically reversed to what it is now.
Right.
And we were standing over top. Good game, John. Good. And I'm yelling at him. He hands up a stick. I was hooked.
And that was
I was
back in
hooked.
the
That
day
game-
when they used to imprint it. It would say Cullitons,
It's-
Louisville.
You know what, Razor? I have that. I have the stick at home.
Unreal.
Wow.
It's but you know what? Grew up watching, and I had a front row seat to this hockey club for years and years, and I was so proud to be able to finally crack the lineup. And
Right.
I didn't play a ton, but at the same time, I got to play probably the best hockey of my entire life in practice. Like
Yeah.
these guys practice like it was. The practices were amazing.
Yeah.
And I got as much joy out of that. And Dennis was clear on expectations. I got in when I think I might have taken a few too many penalties when I got in, but I said, Dennis, I got to get on the score sheet, man.
Yeah.
I got to prove that I was here. If
Well, you played, I think it was one game I was reading in the notes. You had one game the year before
Yeah.
the 84-85.
I got called up when I was in juvenile once or twice, yeah, and played a playoff game, and it was a game just after a brawl.
Okay.
So Tim, I can remember Rat Patterson's taking the face off.
Right.
And he skates over and he says, "Davey, stick him before he sticks him." Okay, I guess I'm in.
Oh, so then you come to camp with Bully, 84-85. You guys don't know each other. Kind of take us through what went on in camp and what you guys were thinking. You've got Waterloo has just come off All Ontario Championship. You know that they're the team to beat. What was kind of the vibe? Because you had Dennis as a first-year head coach. He came in from New Hamburg, where he was coaching Junior C, and Ross Yancey, who had won a provincial championship with Tavistock Junior D.
Who we were saying probably could have strapped the gear on and been
Right? He was that good.
He could have been D1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them are top 50 of all time. So you guys were in good hands with those two guys. So you only had 8 returnees from the year before. And kind of take us through, from your first recollection, remembering. I know sometimes it's a lot to ask to go back that far, but what was kind of like the vibe, seeing guys like Berger, Boyd Sutton, Jimmy Hughes, all these guys that are out there in camp?
The interesting thing in Stratford, and we were talking about it earlier, is that every year, a lot of junior programs, each year there's graduating players, but there's a core of guys that goes year to year. In Stratford, there was a new cast of characters almost every year. And now granted, they all were successful. They all came from their programs. They were good.
Right.
But for them to gel and work and kind of chug in the same direction, these teams did really well at coming together, whether it was the coaching or whether it was the players that they brought in. You know, the guy, was it Walt Morris was the only cog in the
Right.
wheel that went from one year to the next, kind of.
And he was the captain that year.
He was the captain that
Yep.
year.
Yep.
It was wild though, because there's lots of guys with leadership ability and lots of guys that have different things. Like we had Chad Arthur who was breakdancing in the middle of the room. We had Mike Peluso who was throwing himself up against the glass, and it was just I kind of sat there as a Stratford kid and looked around and think, what the hell am I doing here?
Because,
But-
Bully, I'm sure it's a lot like with you growing up in Kitchener. The Kitchener Rangers are, oh my God, if I ever get a chance to play for the Rangers, right? You know, the O was the goal when you're playing minor hockey with us. It's to put the Warrior or the, Culliton logo on the front of you. And so to walk us through with you coming into Stratford, how much did you know about the history? Like, kind of tell us what you felt like coming in.
Well, the history here in the Junior B League here has always been, it was really, really a two-team league for a long while. Like
Stratford, Waterloo.
Stratford, and it was very much that in our time there. Not that some of the other teams weren't competitive, but like ultimately you knew the winner was probably going to be
Right.
kind of one of the two teams. And so, that in itself, when Denny sort of, approached me about coming, that they're going to have a quality product because they're either going to win it or finish second, and that's what happened both years I was there.
Right.
So, but the interesting thing for me is like coming in, I had no idea that we were going to have like 12 or 13 American players.
Right.
The first year that we were there. But thinking back, one thing that makes me kind of laugh is, when we had the first handful of practices or whatever, out come two guys in a pair of skates with like blue runners right on the bottom.
The
right?
blue perfecta.
The blue perfecta. One
Yeah.
guy is some 16-year-old guy that's scored 197 goals in midget hockey. It's like I had played with a guy that used to score like that. So when guys were going, well, he comes from a small town, so he's probably playing against like Farmer, and I said, I'm not so sure. I played with a guy that scored like that before, and I said I just have a thought that this guy might be wildly good. But out comes Nelson and out comes Boyd Sutton.
Right.
And they're both wearing these blue things. The stupidest 18 guys were the guys that didn't go back and try to get blue runners on their blades.
I was looking for blue blades.
Yeah.
I thought that
Right.
might get me in the line.
Well, with me being a Gretzky fan, that's where I first saw him when 99 was wearing them in the NHL. And then when I saw Boyd Sutton wearing them in Stratford, I'm like losing my mind going, that is so cool. Emmer had red ones.
Oh, right, yeah.
But I remember looking at Sutton's going, that guy, and man, could he skate.
Oh my God, he was so fast.
The two of them were just ridiculous and how quick they were in a straight line.
Right.
But and Boyd skated with power.
Yeah.
He was
bow-legged. Like when you watched him
walk
walk off skates, he was bow-legged. And I remember like being like I'd see him in the hallways there at Central, and just because you're right. There were so many Americans. There was Berger from Detroit, Phil Berger, another top 50 of all time. Boyd Sutton from Alaska went on to Miami of Ohio. You had Jimmy Hughes.
Jimmy
coming
Hughes.
in. Jimmy Hughes, sired 3 kids
He's
playing
done
in the
okay,
NHL.
eh?
Not
Yeah.
too bad.
Yeah.
Ended up.
I'm super proud of my kids, but he's done okay.
He's done all
done
right.
all right.
He's done all right. And talking to you and Tommy McCann and stuff, just said he was just such a great guy.
Oh, absolutely.
And-
One of my favorite
right?
players I played with. The best story about Jimmy was like he came from Long Island, New York, and Davey and I were just talking. He's going to start laughing now. It took us till, I don't know, I want to say February, where you could actually decipher a sentence that Jimmy Hughes spoke.
He had that
It's like-
New England drawl.
We just stare at him.
Oh my God! It's like if you've ever been like to St. John's and spent a week there, and you meet the local people, and you feel so bad when they're talking to you because you can't respond. I said, he's a guy from Long Island, New York, and you have no idea
Right.
what he is saying. to
Right.
you. Like none.
Well, you were saying that he played so for those that don't know, every 2 years when you were playing Stratford minor hockey, we would go out to Providence, Rhode Island. When you were on the majors, Major, Adam, Pee Wee, Bantam, and Midget, those 4 teams would hop on a coach bus and you drive 12 hours out to Providence, Rhode Island. Well, Davey's telling me, he said him and Jim Hughes are talking in the dressing room the one day, you know, about minor hockey. And Jim's like, yeah, I played for this team, Oyster Bay Gulls. And Davey's like, Oyster Bay Gulls, did you ever play in the Providence, Rhode Island Fram tournament? Yeah, we played in that. So they played against each other.
So then I went and looked, because my mom, bless her heart, had all the little programs, everything tucked in envelopes. So I went and pulled out, there's a program, Jimmy Hughes is in that. But my favorite Jimmy Hughes story is, and I sat beside him in Stratford, but do you remember the old Waterloo barn?
Yeah.
It was
before it was the bubble.
Before it was the bubble.
Yeah.
And you had to go through the doors, and it was.
Oh, no, before that.
No, before it was the bubble, it was just the old barn. But what ended up happening is when you came off the ice, you had to walk through the lobby to get to your dressing room.
Yep.
So we're playing Waterloo, and for as good as your team was in 84 or 85, 86, the Water Siskins were that team for the 3 years previous
Exactly.
to that, right?
Yeah, they were defending champs.
It's intimidating to go into Waterloo, and all the fans are arrogant and all that stuff. And Jimmy Hughes walks into the room, and he goes, I've had enough. If any of those bastards out there say anything, I want you to stick them in the balls. And these are fans he's talking about.
The fans.
I'm laughing, and he's bull-legged too, right?
Is he?
He's
Okay.
kind of marching through the room. He's just a character. He brought, wouldn't you agree, brought a lightness to everything we did.
Yeah,
Like
he was just such a positive guy. He was always in a great mood
Right.
or whatever.
Laughing.
Yeah, he was.
Well, he ended up, I was reading, like, he ended up being the assistant coach of the Bruins. Then he was director of player development with the Leafs, and, like, you know.
He also coached Providence College. And back in the day, my last time seeing Jimmy here, he came home and he was scouting for Providence College, and we went out for lunch together. And he's just such a character. And if you see him on any of the interviews now talking about his royal family of hockey players, he's just that same guy. He jokes around. He's just he was a fun guy to have around the room.
Like, how like, what are the odds of you having 3 sons and having your 3 sons, Quinn, Luke, and Jack, playing all in the NHL, and, like, not just, you know, taking
Ask
up a
old man
seat.
Stahl how it feels, I guess.
Wow.
He's got 4 of them.
Or
Right.
the Sutters.
Or the Sutters.
Yeah, but, like, it's not very common,
Well,
right?
that's, that's just it. You know, that makes you pretty much all by itself famous.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, Jim too, and I think Warren would agree, when we talked about Boyd Sutton being a great skater, and Jimmy Hughes was a fantastic skater.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredible skater.
Yeah.
So smooth.
Yeah.
No question. There's some passed on genetics. I mean, I know, you know, Jimmy being a coach of player development stuff probably helped his kids learn the right way, but there's something passed on. You've seen that before too in different hockey families where it's like, man, the old man can fly and the kid can fly too, or whatever. Definitely going on there because Jimmy could skate.
Right,
He
right.
could really, really skate.
Then you had Mike Peluso. What was he, like, 6'4"? Like, he was a big guy, but he wasn't a tough guy when he was in Stratford.
Beanpole. He was so skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good story about Mike. When I finished in Stratford and I was playing at Western, my roommate that I lived with at the time was a guy that had been a multi-year captain for the Peterborough Petes, and Mike Hudson from the Hawks was his absolute best friend. And so we're sitting around one time in early September, and we get a phone call, and Hudson says he's talking to you know, both of us, and he said, "Let Bully know we got one of his teammates here that is just fighting everybody that will look at him in here." And I'm thinking, like, who's that going to be? And he said, some kid from, like, Alaska, big, tall kid or whatever. And I'm like, holy, like, is Peluso? Like, Mike is fighting everybody? Like, I mean, he was a big guy or whatever, but didn't play that game at all. I don't pretend to know how he developed when he went and played college hockey. But I doubt he did a whole lot of fighting in college hockey.
No, because that's not the norm in D1.
No, and then he ends up being part of the crash line and everything else. It's like he just reimagined himself as a hockey player or whatever. But it was kind of really surprising to me that, you know, he was a very good skater. You kind of thought he would develop into, like, sort of a purely offensive kind of guy maybe over time, but not so much.
Because there's a story. Bud Graper, God rest his soul, before he passed away, told me that there was a story, and I can't remember which director it is. I want to say it was Sid Creek, but I can't say 100%. It might have been John Parker, but one of them said when Peluso got drafted to the NHL, they said that guy will never, ever make it to the NHL. And the other directors said to him, "You care to make it interesting?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And so then at the time, Graper had a couple of condos down in Florida. And so Graper told me, he said, and this was probably after drinks, you know, the directors are all sitting around and, you know, the crow's nest up where we did the podcast. And the guy said, "I'll tell you what," he said, "if Mike Peluso ever plays one NHL game, I'll take all you guys down to Graper's place and it's on me." And they said, "You're on." So then as soon as Mike played his first game, then they booked the flights, they booked it all, and they asked him for his credit card. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, no. You said at one of our meetings that you were going to foot the bill, and true to his word, he did, right? Like, but that was an expensive conversation for him that night. But
No doubt.
it's unfortunate because, you know, as we all know, Peluso ended up becoming a fighter in the NHL, and that was back in the era where they really didn't have the policies and procedures that they do today. And, you know, I remember seeing a thing on W5 that he thinks he's got CTE.
Yeah, I saw it as well.
And, you know, it's just unfortunate. And, you know, he ended up, you never want to see a guy end up like that, right? And, and especially, but back in that era, that's what he had to do to stay there.
Well,
And-
that's what I heard, is that's what he was told when he got drafted and he was playing in the minors or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, listen, you better do something to stand out.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that old Don Cherry line, if you're not going to score, hit, fight, or do something.
Right.
That's an old school mentality. And sometimes we do stuff, we do whatever we need to do to get where we want to be. And he's not the only one. There's lots of guys that are like
No,
that.
that's right. And it's
Grimson used to say the same thing. He said, you know, if I don't fight, I don't eat. That
exactly.
was kind of his policy.
Another guy in that same vein who played with you guys who didn't end up getting cut from us and playing for Elmira was Potvin.
Yeah, yeah.
Same deal. But, you know,
He was
just
a
to
tough
go,
bugger too.
Oh my
Wasn't he,
God,
though?
he was so good.
He was a bad man.
He was. He
but
was.
I'd love to go to when talking about a guy like Mike Peluso. Yeah, there's some nightmarish stories that have happened since, but what a good guy.
Oh yeah,
Just a
yeah.
friendly, like, again, you know, bless Denny and Joan and the way they operated, but they brought together good people.
Yes.
And that team couldn't be successful without having a room full of captains that are just, it was so much fun
Yeah.
to play with guys like that. And Peluso was like that.
Always smiling. I remember him walking around the halls of Central, always smiling, towering over people.
Yeah.
And he had the mullet. He had one of the best mullets. He had the Barry Melrose mullet.
Some good flow.
Right. And the women loved him. Like he was just, you know, a good looking guy. But yeah. And then Chad Arthur from Illinois, he went on to Bowling Green, you know, another American. And Steve Dickinson, who is from BG and then went to BG, you know, to play afterwards. Bob Hewer from Randolph, Massachusetts. And then he defected on you guys. He ended up bailing and going to the Cube to the QMJHL, I was
wasn't
reading.
it the other way around? Wasn't he in the queue and then he came
And,
to us?
okay. And then he came to you guys. Okay, because
Halfway through the season, yeah.
Okay.
Here was like all those guys, great. The names, like talking about Chad Arthur. Like Chad Arthur was a presence that was he was a decent sized guy, but his presence was ginormous.
Right.
Like his presence in the room.
But he was a
presence
big,
before
he
the
was a
game,
stocky guy too.
Just
Well put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was strong.
great guy. Lots of fun.
Yeah.
Lots of fun for a dressing room. I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
Dennis is like, what are we going to do with this kid? He's breakdancing with skates on
Right.
in the middle of the room.
That's crazy. One guy that I do know that defected was Don Grasby. So him and Quillis were your goalies.
That's right.
And you know what? It worked out perfectly for Mud. Like, and you know, I was actually talking to one of the twins there Saturday night about Bully and you coming on, and going to be talking about Mud a little bit. But I know exactly how Mud was feeling. Now, I don't know if my situation was 100% the same because you had Quillis there. Him and Mud got along like John Gustafson and I got along the year after Bully. And you both want to play. Unfortunately, it's a position. It's like quarterback, right? There's only one guy necessary, and you both want to play. And so Mud ended up leaving and went over to St. Mary's, only won the league MVP there and led them to the Western. Not a bad year. No. So, you know what? It worked out for Mud. Yeah. You guys went as far as you did, Bully. What were you guys missing that year? Because when we had lunch, I remember you telling me specifically, Razor, Dinny wanted me to come back, and I said to him, Dinny, unless you change this, this, and this, I don't know if I want to come back for the next year.
Well, we had, in my opinion, I'm sure like a lot of the guys that played in Waterloo, I still see regularly now, they'd have a different opinion on it, but I think we had as much or more talent than they did. They were loaded with 19 and 20-year-olds, and they were going to be able to play playoff hockey when playoff hockey came. I mean, if you look at the series, I think we beat them 10-1 in Stratford in one of the games in the final, but, lost the final.
Right.
But, when we had the offense rolling, we could roll on you a little bit, but they were big and they were heavy. Hard to play against.
Was McCutcheon their sniper? Did he play that year? Okay.
Yeah, he was. He was their main. They had one line.
But they also had Kimmel.
Todd Loveday.
Yeah.
And was it Don Einwechter in net?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yeah.
So they had a good team.
Yeah.
I mean, we had enough to be able to perhaps, but we were young as well.
Right.
Like a lot of our good players. I mean, for Nelson, he was in his first year.
Yep.
And as ridiculously good as he is, he wasn't what he was in the second year yet because he was only 16 years old. And we had a lot of Americans who came, and if they had stayed another year, would have been a different story perhaps, but they too were maybe 17 years old. There's a lot of difference in playoff hockey between 20-year-olds and 17-year-olds.
Right. It's man strength, right? Like if you
boys versus men.
If you take a 29-year-old and a 26-year-old, there's not a whole lot of difference. But if you take a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, huge difference, right? Because the 20-year-old, like a Walt Morris, man strength, right? And you talk about Nelson Emerson, only got drafted 44th overall by St. Louis after his first junior B year. And I was reading about how Johnny Bauer, who was a scout for the Leafs, he ended up, after St. Louis took Emerson 44th, they ended up, all these NHL scouts are going, where the hell is this kid? Where did they find him? So then they started watching the Midwest League after that, and specifically Stratford. And I remember coming across an article that Kastner actually sat down and talked to Johnny Bauer one Friday night at the Alman Arena. And he said, I'm here to watch two or three guys. I won't reveal their names because that's bad karma. But he was in town, the night the year we were playing to watch guys because Emerson came out of nowhere to just light it up. And all these scouts are going, what the hell are we paying you for? This kid, we should have had him on the radar somehow. But you're right. All these rookies, Hughes, Peluso, Arthur, Dickinson, Todd Gregory, Mace. Now, when I say rookies, I'm talking first year. Now, they weren't all 16-year-olds. Some were 17, some were 18.
But most were. There were a lot of 16-year-olds.
Paul Fulton, Tom McCann, Jeff St. Cyr, who played with us, was a rookie that first year. Pat Schooley, Dave Walker.
Dave Walker doubled in size from the beginning of our year to he talking about man strength.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That guy could. All he needed to do was get a paw.
He was solid.
Look out.
He was solid. Yeah. Jamie Petrie. Pye played a couple of games.
14.
Played 4 games at 14.
Yep.
Jeff Ernest played a couple of games. Yeah. And then after Mudd left, Steve Graper came. But you guys got into it against Kitchener. In game 1, you got into a brawl where 11 were ejected, 15-minute cooling down period, and the police were called. Like a bit of a Donnybrook with that one.
Yep.
But
I think I hit the media on that one. That's the time. Like, I'm not a fighter,
Right.
So, and of all people, so Peluso he's in and he's messing around, and another guy comes in. So there's two. So in my mind, I'll just grab one and I'll shake him around a little
Right.
bit. Well, I grab Jim Wheeler and I'm shaking him around a little bit. His helmet pops off, and I'm thinking, okay, this is good. I'm good.
right.
No, I'm not good. It was a long night for me. After
Oh,
that.
geez.
But you know what? It was that was junior.
That's how it was played.
Yeah.
That was junior hockey at the time.
Well, and the veterans that you had, Bully, I'm going to call you a veteran, even though it was your first year. You were like 18, turning 19.
Yeah.
You had Rick Kelly.
So, we haven't talked about Kelzer up to this
Right.
point, and Kelzer might have been one of the most talented players.
Led the league in
Stratford
assists, 67 assists that
kid,
year.
and only played how many games?
He played 35 games. He didn't
35
play
games.
all 42.
Yeah, he's such a skilled guy.
Yeah,
Quirky guy. Getting to know Kelzer is
sure,
different.
sure. I love him.
But he was such a great player, and my memory of watching him play as opposed to playing with him, like watching that game where LeVar scores that overtime goal against the London Diamonds and Kelzer's on the ice.
Right.
Kelzer was one of us, right? He was a Stratford kid
Yeah.
that went on to do some great things.
I got to know him pretty good, and so did you, Halser. Like
I knew
his
the
younger
family
brother
really well,
Shane
yeah.
played. Brian and I both played with Shane growing up.
Yeah,
and
I had dinner in the Kelly house almost as often as I had it in my own house. To be
right.
honest with you.
Yeah, and so it was
Well,
just.
Pat-
It was great, to have time with Rick and
Well,
Sue.
he was a god to us.
Oh,
Rick,
yeah.
Rick Kelly was.
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
like, he was. I want to say 4
Davey.
years, maybe 5 years older than we were.
Thanks, man.
And he taught us how to shoot a snapshot.
Oh, wow.
Because we would just, when we wrist shot, when you're a kid, you just push the puck, right? But he taught us how to just push it and snap it. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, it's like mind blown. It's like, oh man, your brother's the coolest dude ever. But the one thing I remember about Rick is it didn't, and I want to keep it positive, but wasn't there a time when Rick really, really, like the Knights wanted him, right?
I don't know.
Like that's if my
It could be.
the Knights wanted him and he wanted his release and Stratford wouldn't give it to him, and so that was probably the beginning of the end of Rick with Stratford because
Right.
he wanted out because he said anyway, and that was a precursor to what happened with Timmy Taylor, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
because back then, Denny did not like
when
you
they had
leaving
you-
to go
yeah.
to Junior A. Now,
Like, that's
in all
not-
honesty, Junior C and D develops guys to get them to B. Junior B develops them to get them to
that's the whole thing.
NCAA
And
Junior A. And
we
Denny,
see that. Yeah, we see that all the time now. In
Right.
fact, we just talked today about the De Blasi kid from Chatham,
Chatham.
who was on the NHL scouting registry.
Right.
And he's gone from Chatham. He's off to Saginaw. Now they
Right.
called him up and played Junior A, and that's I could give you a handful. That goalie in Air, I'm going to forget his name now. Jovanovski, I think his name is.
Okay.
He was a stud goalie for Air, and now
They
he's
picked
gone.
him partway through the season.
Guelph, I think
Yeah.
he went to.
yeah.
So it happens all the time now, but Rick really wanted to go to London, like really. And I remember hearing it, like I said,
Right.
sitting at the dinner table and Rick going, God, if they just let me go, I can go play for the Knights. And,
Right.
and so I think that's what changed him. But he did so many cool things. Like he was
Oh,
teaching.
yeah.
Like, I remember we lost contact, and all of a sudden I ran into Rick, and he's running a hockey school in L.A. I think at
Yeah,
one point.
yeah.
And I think he's still down there, to be honest with you.
Well, no, he's back in
Is
Stratford
he?
now. Yeah.
because
yeah.
I've lost all contact with.
I remember Rick saying to me, though, the first year that he was playing with you guys with Emerson, and he says, I see Emmer, and Rick is like, if he sees something cool, he perfects it. Like he told me the one time I saw a guy throw a Frisbee really cool, and he goes, so I practiced for, I don't know, a couple of months, goes out and wins like a Canadian Frisbee championship. Like he just sees something that interests him, and then he just commits. Well, he saw Emmer in training camp. You know how, Bully, where you put your heel on the puck and then, it looks like it's a magnet where you lift it up. So he sees Emerson do that, and he went over to him and he goes, what the hell did you just do? And he's like, what? And he's like, show me how to do that. And so Rick was showing Shane and myself, how to do that. And just, it looks like, you're picking it up like a magnet. It's kind of like the Michigan, when they're behind the
it
net.
was a precursor, and then of course
Right.
in those days lacrosse was pretty popular in
Right.
this town, right? And Shane was one of the best lacrosse players around.
The Kellys played. All of
I
them
mean,
played,
Shane
didn't they?
Shane scored 8 goals a game, dude. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, we went all the way to the provincial finals with him scoring 8 goals a game.
Yeah.
And so by the time he learned how to pick the puck up, he was just treating it like a lacrosse stick and just doing all this cool stuff. And you know, you see the kids doing it all the time now,
Yeah.
but they were kind of like pioneers to that. Really, I don't know who started it, but came
But
out
you
of
had
nowhere.
Rick lead the team and the league in assists with 67. Bully, you led the league and the team in goals with 54. 21 power play goals. You led that. Phil Berger was right behind you in points. You had 99. He had 95. He had 7 game-winning goals. You had 6. Like, yeah, you had some firepower on
And those
you
were
know.
shorter seasons. Like they play 50 now, but you guys only played 42,
41, wasn't it?
Yeah.
around 40
Oh,
anyway.
no, 38.
38, yeah.
Yeah, these were 42 games that you guys played that year. And then, you know, like even Walt Morris, you know, 41 games, he had 54 points. Like,
Yeah, and
you know,
6th on his team in scoring. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's,
170 penalty minutes. Like,
Yeah.
Wally was just,
And
he
that's-
was just a rock
Just,
back
just
there.
as dependable a player as you can.
Right?
I remember saying to Les, you know, they have, because Les, you met Les, and he's the voice of the Stratford Warriors now. And they just made a big deal, and deservedly so, about Cole Lewis and Hunter Nagy getting their 100th Go JHN points. And these guys are getting 100 points and being celebrated over 4 seasons.
Which is great.
And-
No disrespect to
and
them.
here I'm sitting beside a guy who had 104 goals in 2 seasons.
2
and I know,
years.
you know, he's getting a little embarrassed by this, but it happened.
I'll do
Like
the talking for
100
him.
Yeah.
220 points playoff in 2 years. That includes playoffs. 220 points. He's scoring at almost 3 points a game. Almost 3 points a game through the.
Well, I
like-
was,
and like I said, we all got a front row seat.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
well, and I said to Bully, and you're right, Halser, like he's a humble guy. Like, you know, we're probably embarrassing the shit out of him. But he,
Razor was really good for everyone's confidence.
Well, that's just, you know.
right? Well, that's what Denny told me to do.
that's
He's
right.
like, look at Razor.
Well-
we got Matt. We don't need you to stop pucks. We need you to build up Emmer, Bully, and everyone else's confidence.
One thing
So-
you guys maybe don't know
Completely not
is
true.
that Razor's fresh off a shoulder surgery from all that rotator cuff problem of
right,
pulling pucks
pulling it out of the net. Exactly. I could pull that puck out of the net with the best of them.
I tell
so
you, man, you're legendary. That
wow,
way. Legendary.
exactly.
I thought it was all those like circus hurricane blocker moves that he used to do for the girls in the first 3 rows.
right against Listowel when they were terrible and all those bottom fodder teams. But
So tell me, like, you playing growing up in Kitchener, and then you played in Henry Carr, and I don't know what kind of fan base you got here. So tell me all about the first time you played in Stratford in front of a full house in front of 2,000 people.
As a junior B experience, night and day. Something that probably even Denny would not know, but you can find it because sometimes in the last handful of years, sometimes when Kitchener was on a big run a couple of years ago, there's a local sports reporter that phoned a whole bunch of us when they were on a 25-game winning streak and asking us about our 85 team. And he actually told me, he said, I was looking down your list, and he said, like in 1981, you have 2 points in a game in Stratford. And I said, it's true, because when I was a minor midget, I played a playoff game at Stratford where I played for Kitchener, and I got a
Kitchener Junior B.
got a pair.
Okay.
Dutchman, I think?
Yeah, it would have been the Dutchman.
I got a pair of assists in a game or whatever. We got throttled inside
Oh, geez.
in there. I don't know what it was. I think we got beat like 10-2 or something like
Right.
that. But I got a pair of points in there. But I remember looking around going, wow, like what a show they're putting on in here for a
Right.
junior B game. You go to Kitchener, there's 40 people.
Yeah, at the old auditorium.
40 people.
Like I remember, like because Kitchener wasn't that good at
Yeah.
the time, and one of my starts. Now this is before the renovations, so it was like Maple Leaf Gardens where they had the seats continuously just going straight up. Now they've got it where they brought the top ones kind of closer, but I'll never forget. You know, I think it was Brad Martin was at the other end, and I'm standing there, and they're singing the national anthem. A bomb could have gone off. I think Stratford had about 30, people, fans that were good travelers at the game. Kitchener maybe had 5. Like, you couldn't have had a quieter arena. And normally we would play at the other rink, but the one game we played there at the Odd, and it was cool to be there. But man, oh man, it was so quiet. But
A lot like Owen Sound too, right? Remember the bus trips to
Yeah,
Owen
it's a
Sound, and
long
you go up there, it was empty.
yeah.
The best part of the Owen Sound trip is you got sandwiches on the bus on the way down.
Well,
if you can get them past the executive, you were good because they.
Well, that was the last year when you guys first played was Owen Sound and Guelph, so they eliminated them the following year for our 85-86. So we never had to go make those trips up to Owen Sound.
That's another guy too. Greg Snyder played with us for a bit before he moved on to Owen Sound.
that's
That
true.
year.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Another good hockey player and a good senior player close by, right? He ended up playing, I think, in Tavi.
Right,
for,
right.
The senior team.
You're right, yeah.
So before we get into the 85-86, because otherwise I'll forget, Bully, you're the number 3 all-time goals per game. Only one's ahead of you. Sean Heafy's number 1. Phil Berger's number 2. You're number 3. Then you're the number 4 points per game all-time leader. Number 1 is Old Chuck. He played the 1 year where he averaged over 3 points a game. Then number 2 is Heath. Number 3 was Berger, and then you're number 4. But folks, like for the 800 plus people that played, like I know we're embarrassing the hell out of them, and it's funny because Bully and I, when we were talking last week, we were out for lunch, and I told him about the podcast, and he says, "My buddies are telling me like I'm on some top 50 list. Like what the hell? What's going on?" And it comes out that Bully's good buddies with my old captain when I left and went to St. Thomas, Pete McMenemy. And so Pete, like just a gem of a guy, and Brian Donaldson, Weezer, and Darren Semple, Smay. Like I was texting with Pete, and I said, you got to let the boys know because we're going to be talking about the St. Thomas series, and they had a great team.
They certainly
and you know what? That was our championship, was getting through them.
Oh, no question.
And that was hard. Like Streetsville wasn't tough. They were idiots.
Yeah.
They had a couple of strong guys, but they weren't tough. Like St. Thomas was good, and they were tough. And for us to get by them, like, it's funny, their coach, Skip Cummings, literally said after Game 3, they were leading 7-5 with less than 10 minutes to go, and we win 8-7. And he says right in the press, he goes, we're just missing one player, a goalie. Well, that didn't go over very well with the 3 goalies that they had.
You think?
Right? And so I can't remember, but Scott Luce didn't dress. He was their number 1. He ended up, that's Don Luce's son,
Right.
played for St. Mary's and then ended up making his way to St. Thomas. He ended up, stinking the rank out in Game 1. We won 9-8, but we'll get into that. But
Then they got their goalie a couple years later, right?
well, you know what? It was a similar situation to Stratford where they had me, and then they had a London Knight guy. His name he was Swedish actually. His name was Anders Hogberg, and so when I was here in Stratford, we were alternating John Gustafson and I, and then everybody knows that story. I've talked about it, why I left. And when I went to St. Thomas, then Anders was playing, and so then we were 1A and 1B, and just a fantastic guy. So, but Bully, the season ends. You guys end up losing 4-1 to Waterloo in the league finals. They go on to win their second All-Ontario Sutherland Cup. What happened? What did Denny say to you, and what did you say to him that you needed before you decided to come back to Stratford?
Well, the plan originally was that I was going to play a single season because I was already admitted to Western and was already going to play for them in the OUAA. And, Denny pitched it pretty hard to me and said, we didn't go as far as we wanted to go, but he now had a commitment that Nelson was coming back, and you knew what kind of player he was
Right.
going to be the second year around, and that he had a line on a couple of other, really strong offensive players. And I just kind of said to him, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I would not come back to do the same thing 2 times in a row, because I said it has to be constructed different. And the one sort of ask that I made of him, I said, do you remember the one guy that we cut in our camp? Because like Mark Potvin and I go way back. I mean, he's a Kitchener kid. He played for my father 2 or 3 times. And I said, and wreaked havoc on everyone and everything.
He was a menace. Could score, fight, everything.
The best.
He was hard to play against.
Oh yeah.
The best teammate anybody will ever have. If he is on your team or whatever, everybody by default is 3 inches taller.
100%.
3 inches taller. And I said, you go get him. And I said, when he comes, I said, I want him.
Right.
I said, I don't need some guy you can find that scored 79,000 goals in high school hockey in Massachusetts or whatever. I said, great if we can find him. I said, he can play with Nelson or he can play with whoever.
Right.
I said, I have him because I said he will not be confused on what plan I have.
Right. Had you played with Potsy before that?
He was, like I said, he's a year younger
Okay,
than me.
yeah.
So, like, I mean, I knew him. Like, my dad was a AAA coach.
Right.
And he, he loved players. His favorite player on our 85, 86 team was Bryn Gladding.
I love it. I love it.
He used to tell me all the time, the only thing he disliked about Stratford is he said, whoever picks the 3 stars in Stratford should be throttled because he said I watched that game and he said, the 3 stars come out and he said, you might as well just give like you, Heafy, Emerson, maybe Rexy or something like that, stars every night. And he goes,
Ray.
I'm just going to cut Bully off there. What you may not have heard just now is his dad was pissed off that he was a star.
Yes,
Bryn Gladding
yes.
wasn't.
Oh,
Right,
No, that's
right.
That's where I'm kind of going.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it Hammond? I thought Hammond picked him. I could
I
have
don't
sworn
know.
Clark Hammond picked
Clark?
the 3 stars.
Sorry,
It
Clark.
could be. Yeah.
So, I get the regular lecture all the time. It's like, you guys are out there trying to toe drag people and see if you can make 9 passes on that power play before you finish it. And most of the time you screw it up. And Gladding does more work in a period than you 4 or 5 guys do in a game. Right. And it's like,
Brinny.
just
Wow.
loved
Wow.
him. I said to Razor, I said, every 2 weeks I'd pull into the driveway, hope that I didn't see like Bryn's car and I could like,
That he'd been disowned.
I've been disowned out of the family. He goes, I'm only coming to the games to watch that kid play.
Tough love.
No, but
Tough love.
But he loved players like Mark. Mark was one of his
Yes.
favorite players in minor hockey growing up because he gave you, the old 100%. He gave you 100%
Yes.
every time he played. And boy, he could be nasty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so he brings back Potsy. Emmer comes back. Walt is back.
Yeah, we get Scott Rex, which was a huge addition.
Right. Yeah, he was playing for Brantford Classics.
Yeah, he gave us a piece of that we didn't have, and then we surrounded it because the conversation I had with Denny is I said we need to get older, and bigger,
Yes.
and nastier. You got to get big and heavy and tough. I said
Yeah.
you've got the best player in junior B hockey.
Yeah.
You know that. I
Yeah.
said I don't know what he's going to do next year, but it's going to be something stupid probably. He's probably
Right.
going to score 90 goals or whatever. I said we won't have any trouble winning the scoreboard. I said unless people are pushing us around all over
Right.
the place out there as a team, right? And
your back end there, they
Oh.
were big.
Oh, it was
They were
heavy.
big.
You know.
Every team is dying.
You want to
get
talk about
that
heavy? Okay, let me read who the D were: Walt Morris, Jeff
St. Cyr.
Wettlaufer,
Jeff Sincere,
Jeff St. Cyr, Kevin Dahl,
Steve Nelson.
Steve Nelson.
Steve Nelson. We traded for him at the deadline. He was Lincoln's biggest, heaviest
him lay an
defenseman.
open ice hit in the
Oh.
middle of the ice. That
Yes.
I thought
Right
killed-
at the blue
I thought he
line.
killed a guy.
Well, he actually had a Charlie horse after that. He hit the guy with his
Remember
hip
that so hard. Yeah.
so hard that he was actually
Hurt.
I don't think he played for a game or two after because he hit him so hard. But
Jeff Walker,
yeah, Dave Walker,
Ernie.
Jeff Ernest.
We love Ernie.
just-
he's a little nuts, but we love him.
Just
Can I say something about Jeff Ernest? I played my entire life with Jeff
you,
Ernest.
like I said,
Yeah.
you played all the way up. My brother
All the
played
w-
on those teams too.
Minor hockey, city, junior B,
It's,
a
for
little
the
bit.
record, little Ernie.
Little Ernie.
Little Ernie.
City League, then Old Timers. And I swear to God, there's not a guy that you would rather have on your right arm.
Oh.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
will
he's
do
awesome.
anything for you. And again, another one of those guys that was never angry.
No.
No.
You know, he
Just a happy-go-lucky
played the game
guy.
with passion, but I'll tell
Yeah.
you, he'll
Unless
do
you were wearing a
anything.
different shirt than he was, then he was a little angry then.
Yeah.
Because the only
Well-
guy that scared little Ernie was Big Ernie.
Yeah. His older brother, Tony.
So,
The
yeah.
only time Big
Yeah.
Ernie
was a
scares
big man.
anybody is when he shoots the puck because nobody knows.
Hello.
Nobody knows
hello.
where it's going.
Oh man! Oh God, he could shoot. I remember City League. He would wind up, and everybody there would be like he
just
was
duck.
Moses. We just wanted to call him
out
Moses
of the
because
way.
every time he wound up, he just went harding of the sea.
But that D core,
Oh, yeah.
like it might be one of the biggest D core that you've ever seen
Yeah.
at Junior B.
Yeah, and they could play it any way. Like, you know, good first pass out. You know, we could play with finesse. And if you wanted to get stupid, they were ready to answer the bell with that too, right? Like,
Not just ready. They
Well,
were
and
licking their
capable.
chops. They
Right.
wanted
Right.
to do it.
Then of course you had Rexy, right?
oh,
Sorry,
there
folks.
we go.
Working on that.
Oh, there you go.
And then
Nope.
Oh, try it now.
we'll try it now.
Test.
All right. Let me work on that. Why don't we go for break?
Yeah, we'll go for break. And then
Do some
we'll
technical adjustments, and then we can come back. You can tell everyone that joke, and we'll fix this.
All right, we'll be back, folks.
I need to pee.
Perfect.
That's
unmuted?
group
Yeah,
of
we're-
defensemen, though.
All right,
Ernie
let's
story I
get
should
this.
tell.
Are we good? Yep, we're good now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
no,
just
you
reach
know,
out.
we'd
Sorry.
We might have a handful, 5-6 power plays in a night, and score 5 out of the 6 times, and wonder how the heck we didn't score on that other one.
Right.
The confidence level amongst that group was just like
Just off the charts.
I've had people say to me, like, you know, that they've kind of tried to do, you know, a count back or whatever, and said, like, you know, you guys were humming near 80% for a long while. And like that one particular aspect, on top of all the things that our team could bring and how physical we could play, you know, we didn't give up very much. You know, we had 4 or 5 forwards that hit everything that moved. You know, when the games got physical and you're trading 7 power plays for each team, and we're going to score on 6 of the 7 of ours,
Right.
that's going to be a huge problem for you when
Right.
you're playing us.
Yeah.
Like, huge.
Well, when we, not to skip forward, but when we ended up getting into the finals against Streetsville, the first 2 games, we had 9 power play goals and 8. We had 17 power play goals against those guys. Like,
It was an embarrassment.
It was
an embarrassment.
It
And I
really
think
was.
My fun story about that one is I'm sitting in class at Western, and you know, studious as I am, just, you know, taking notes.
Of course.
I was working away, and this guy comes up and he says, Warren says, "I'll be over. I'm going to pick you up. We got game 1 in Stratford." I said, I don't know. I'm busy. I'm going to study. I'm doing it. No, I'll pick you up. Well, we go back, and that's game 1 when they got a lineup full of guys that could fight, and this guy's the one dropping the gloves. And it was almost like he was saying to me in class, he says, "You're going to miss something that you're going to talk about forever." So 40 years later, I'm on a podcast
Right.
talking about that fucking night, or that night that I was hanging out.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
So, but before we get there,
yes.
it's Waterloo. Let's talk about the Waterloo series.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest with you. Waterloo,
It
Waterloo
wasn't
was
that
the-
memorable.
It wasn't.
They were
But they were the team. Let's talk about going into the Waterloo series. You know you've got something special going on.
Yeah, they were back-to-back defending Sutherland Cup champs. They had beat us 3 times in the regular season. Like, they were good. But by the time it came to the playoffs, I can't remember if it was injuries, but they really didn't put up much of a fight. Like, we didn't blow them out, but it wasn't anything like the 5th and 6th series, like with us beating St. Thomas or Streetsville. We end up beating, I think we went through, well, we beat Elmira 4-0, then we beat Waterloo 4-0 to win the league. We go into St. Catharines, we beat them 4-1. They were lucky.
Waterloo was different, though. Waterloo went on a run for about three years.
Yeah.
And then McCutcheon, Kimmel, Pearson,
Yeah.
Loveday.
Yeah.
Loveday.
Yeah, they were all they were gone.
Right, so they had to reboot.
Yes, yeah,
But-
which all good teams have to.
I
right?
still think that your team in 85, 86 beats the Waterloo system.
Well, I was going to ask that very question. Let's
I-
ask the unanswerable.
I'm going there.
Does
I'm going to go
does
there.
that team
I think
beat,
they would have.
beat the team that beat you the year before?
We could have beaten, and obviously I'm biased, but even like our coaching staff and like executive and stuff said we would put you guys up against a lot of junior A teams. Now, I'm not saying that we would have beat like the top echelon junior A teams, but we would have given them a good run for their money. Like
Well, and in fairness, you had a team that had players that went as far as a lot of junior A teams had on their roster.
right.
You know, you could stack up when you talk up the NHLers and the pro players and the college players, the D1 guys,
Yep.
full scullies, that type of thing. You probably had as many on that roster as a lot of junior A teams did in those days. Maybe not nowadays when they're all drafted or going D1, but certainly at the time.
But it's like, it's like you said, Bully. Like, yeah, everybody talked about the 350 goal scorers down the middle. There are not too many teams, period, not just junior B, where you have 350 goal scorers. You had Emmer led the league at 54. Bully, you had 52. and Heath had 50. Like, what line do you focus on?
You had 2 players with 112 points on that, and
Yeah.
then you had Heafy and Murray, and
Yeah.
like Shifley, and
Yeah.
But we also had too, like, I mean, amongst the forward group, I don't know how many Steve would have had, but he had 40 goals. Didn't he?
Shifley?
Or close to it, something like that.
Yeah, he had 41.
And like, you know, Potvin scored
Potts,
some
he had
goals.
22.
Yeah, Irby scored some goals.
Irby, he had 20.
Yeah.
Bryn had 15. Pat Murray had 13. Like, it was ridiculous. So we had like, you and Emmer led the league with 112 points. He led it in goals. You led it in assists. Then you had Heath at 82 points, Sheffley at 80, Rexy at 69, and Potsy at 65. And so Rexy would float between defense and left wing. He was up, he was back, he was all over, but it was just such a potent power play. And
Well, I think point should be made that year that Heafy had, he was 16, wasn't he? At that?
Yes.
16
He was
turning
16
17.
He was 16 years
Yeah.
old, had that kind of year. That'll tell you the kind
Yeah.
of
It's-
hands that guy
and
had.
then Heath ended up leading our team in scoring in the playoffs. Nelson obviously got all the attention, and rightfully so. And he was getting, like, mauled by teams. Like, you had Pete McLeod. We'll get into it. So we get into St. Thomas, and they Pete McLeod, who was playing for the London Knights, 21-year-old. He London wasn't very good back in those days, not like they are now. The Hunters didn't own the Knights, so he comes back to St. Thomas. His job was just to shadow Emmer, and was all over him, and he couldn't stop him. Like, even it was like Gretzky, right? You know that you've got guys on him, and he still finds a way to either score or set up other guys, and that left room for you and Heath and all the other guys to do your magic. So we get into game 1, we end up winning 9-8. Emmer scores on a breakaway with 2:25 remaining, and that was back when overtime was a full 10-minute period. It wasn't sudden death like it is today. And so in a 10-minute
That was up there, right? That wasn't in Stratford.
it was in St. Thomas.
Yeah,
So
it
we
was-
started
yeah.
game 1 there.
I was at that game as a student.
Yeah. And so we scored twice in overtime to their 1. We had 5 power play goals, and that was the game that Scott Luce played for them. Didn't play very well, so they yank him out. They put in Dave Rook in the second game in Stratford, and he gets lit up. We win 8-7. We get 5 more power play goals in that game. Then game 3, we win 8-7 back down in St. Thomas. Luce didn't even dress that game. I don't know what was going on, behind. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't think he was hurt, but who knows, right? Pete would know, McMenemy. But we were trailing 7-5 with less than 10 minutes to go in the third period. And Heath steps over center ice and lets a slap shot go that beats Dave Rook, low stick side, but a foot off the ice. Takes the wind right out of St. Thomas. And this is a packed house at the old Elgin Memorial Arena. And so, now we've got, some energy. We're only down by a goal, 7-6. And then Sheffley scores on a one-handed dribbler. Gets it past Dave Rook. So now it's 7-7. And then Rook gets pulled, and Bryn Gladding scores on backup John Whalen on the very first shot. It was an easy wrist shot, and now we've got our first lead of the game, and we ended up winning that game 8-7. But we were down 3-0 in that first game, or in game 3. And Matt, that was the only game. Dennis said in the paper I was actually considering pulling Matt when we got down 3-0 in the first period. He didn't, and good thing that he didn't. Matt went on. He stopped 31 shots in the second period, 19 in the third, and he made a huge glove save off Ronnie Horvat with 9 seconds left in the game to prevent overtime. And so, Matt was good. Like, he had his moments. Like, he had a stinker against St. Catharines, and we ended up losing that one game. But Andrew Dockstader cross-checked Heafy and Gladding in warm-ups. I forgot about that. And they crossed center ice to get a puck. And there was just a bunch of pushing and shoving. Like, it wasn't a Donnybrook or anything. But Chief ended up, just saying to them, hey, look, stay on your side of the ice. But that was the St. Thomas Stars. Like, if you're gonna, come into our building, you better be prepared for war. And it was tough. Then we get into game 4 back in Stratford. We ended up sweeping them. It was a sellout crowd. You, Emmer, Heath, and Sheffley all had 2 goals. We end up winning 9-4. The wind had gone out of their sails, and they were done by that point. But
I remember that one.
They were such a good team. They were our Sutherland Cup. That was then that we knew, okay, we hadn't seen Streetsville yet, but looking back in hindsight, that was our Sutherland Cup, getting by St. Thomas. They were that good. So
yeah, no question about it. They had enough physical play that they could play, they could match up. They had enough offensive push that they could really push at you.
Yeah.
And the thing was, for us, it was the first time we kind of got interested because, when you enter into a series, I don't think we'd seen a competitive game with a team that could kind of play with us the entire year till that moment.
Right.
Right? That year in the league, at no point did you ever lose any night's sleep about the Waterloo Siskins. It's
right.
kind of like, we were so much better than they were.
Yeah.
But this team, they were an excellent hockey team.
Very good.
Excellent hockey team.
Isn't it remarkable how good this league was at one point, where you could go through the roster that was on Stratford that year and still know that there was at least one team that could really push you to your very limits.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not something younger people have no concept of how good the junior B loop used to be.
Yeah.
At one point. I mean, there were a lot of guys who played in the NHL
and
that played in this league.
That was before Tier 2 Junior A and the BCHL took off. So Stratford was the hockey hotbed. Stratford was where the NHL scouts, the D1 scouts, they all came to look at the Midwest, the Western,
I saw Bobby Clark in that rink at one time.
Yeah.
It was a full house of scouts in those days, right?
It was.
A full house.
They would always, usually anyway, they would stand down at the end behind the Stratford goalie. That's where you'd find most of them anyways. If you just took a little walk around there, you could just, I think I know that face. And that was, I remember doing that walk one time
Bobby Clark said to me, he said, "Are you Gary Ray?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Could you tell me where Steve Sheffley is?"
Like, do you know all the good players?
That was Razor the other day. Hey, do you have Bully's number, by the way?
If you can get Bully on, you can come too, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, it was hilarious.
Thanks a lot, guys.
It was hilarious because I knew how tight you two were.
How's it feel to be the modern day Razor?
You know what? I'm just here to carry your hockey bag. That's what I do. I do it well.
Funny, that's what I'm here for.
Right?
I'm here to carry his hockey bag.
You know
what? Though, at the end of the day, I think Junior B. It's great to go down to the rink and watch the kids play and see that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But back at that time, there were picking grounds, right? And
oh yeah.
They were looking, and you didn't have the program in the U.S., the junior program in the U.S. So
right.
A lot of the kids from Michigan and Massachusetts are coming here to play.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you get the Clark Donatellis or the Chad Arthurs or the
Boyd Suttons and
well, it was such
Steve
news
Sheffley.
at the time that year that the 3 guys came from Chicago, right?
Yeah, that was
but
huge.
That was huge news at the time.
What's really amazing though is hockey was different then, but it really isn't. Like when we talk about the Leafs right now, some of the stuff that they talk about being playoff ready, being stronger, being harder to play against, that's exactly what Bully's talking about.
Yeah.
In a success, the Waterloo Siskins, they created the template back in that day. Mm-hmm. They were veteran players. They were all of them were 19 and 20 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were a bunch of us 16-year-olds going in or 17-year-olds going in to play against a bunch of men. We were lucky, and then Sittler showed up there partway through the year after he left Elmira. Them. He was a strong player for them, but they're all veteran players. Yeah. When this team took the ice, or your team took the ice, that was that team. They were
Yeah.
veteran guys.
and that's what I've tried to explain to many people that have kind of asked about that 85, 86 team is like, we probably don't win the whole thing without, like, the guys that don't get enough credit are like the Bryn Gladdings and the
Trevors
and the Walkers and
Pat Murray's.
yeah, like all those guys were tremendously important contributors, like big time, both with like they scored as well. Some of them, like I always call, like Bryn Gladding was the set the tone guy. Once every Friday night, he would hit somebody so hard that like you're on the bench, you could feel the air as the guy was getting knocked on his can. Right. Like those things are hugely important if your team's going anywhere. Like the example I gave you earlier, I said, like, at least be working on a 5-peat if you just needed 3 guys to score 100 points, right?
Right. Well, and that's so true, right? Like and you need to gel. Like you look at what Florida did last year. Like they just looked like they were having fun. And losing to Boston, the year before, you need all of, the important pieces of the puzzle. Yes, you need the goal scorers. Obviously, if you don't put a puck in the net, you're not going to win. But it is so much more than that. And, when you told me about your dad, loving Bryn Gladding, I can see it. Like he was the nicest guy off the ice. He'd take his shirt off and he was ripped. Like he was a solid guy, but very unassuming, like didn't look for the spotlight. He was just, he was one of these guys that would just show up, do his job, and chip in. And I was telling Bully,
always smiling.
Always smiling.
Loved to play the game, and it didn't matter what game you were playing.
He scored a big goal. I forget which series and which game it was, but Kastner went to go talk to him, and Kastner even put it in his article where he said Warren Bullock yelled out from across the room, "It's about time you talk to a guy like him," because he was so valuable. And Trevor Erb, people had no idea, like you piss him off. You look at him and he doesn't look, very, overwhelming.
I loved my line mates.
Right.
I mean, I played with Potvin and Herb.
Yep.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
Man, they were ready to they were ready to go at lunchtime. Right? It's like I'm saying to myself, I better get myself in this game because man, these guys are like they got full on crazy going here tonight. So like but just awesome guys to play with. Like, awesome.
We come into the finals, game 1, Streetsville. They've got 2 brothers, Bill and Bob McDougall, where they spell it MC. And then there's another McDougall, Steve McDougall, where he spells it MAC. They're all nuts. All 3 of them are nuts. There's about, as I go through the notes here, there was just so much. Like I remember bits and pieces, and I'm sure you probably do too. But there was just so much as I was reading Kastner's rebuttal and the write-ups that he would do. They were nuts. The first game in Stratford, we have 8 power play goals. We win at 12-5, 289 minutes and penalties. Emmer gets decked after he crossed center, grabbing a puck in warm-ups. 6 fights in the final stages of game 1. You and Irby posted lopsided wins, Kastner wrote. Clark McMillan two-handed Emmer across the ankle during a stoppage in play, like just a bonehead. And Steve Nelson, after Emmer got the 2 hands, Steve Nelson went up to the Derby's top scorer, Bill McDougall, as retaliation, and clotheslined him. It was like slap shot. And it was just
and
the beginning.
McDougall was like Hanson's. Really.
Yeah.
That's the way they
they were nuts.
It was a joke. I remember them.
So then Bully scores early in the third period to make it 6-4. Bill McDougall, their top scorer, makes it 6-5, and then we blew the game wide open with 6 goals in 10 minutes. There was 5 fights. Potvin fought Darren Worth. Irby fought Bob McDougall, who acted like a tough guy, and he turtled. There's a picture in the paper that Steve Rice took, and Irby's got him down, and he's just feeding him. But he was one of these guys where he would poke you, but he wasn't tough. He acted tough with a stick in his hand. And then Ernie and Bill McDougall fought. But then Steve Nelson ends up fighting Pete Walsh, and then you fought Grant Paremba. The big fight with you was in game 3, but this was in game 1. You're fighting Grant Paremba. That game you had 2 goals, 2 assists. Fans and police went down to Streetsville's dressing room after the game. They were complaining that how the Derby players were intentionally shooting pucks into the stands. This is game 1 in warm-ups.
Game 1.
Our fans haven't done anything, and they're already getting pucks. This is before the screen was the mesh was around.
Yeah, believe me.
Yeah. So they're firing pucks purposely into the stands.
We had seasons tickets for years right behind the net. The first row of blues. There's the 3 rows of reds and 3 rows of blues before they made the changes where the Chirpers stand now. And we had seasons tickets back there.
Right.
And this was earlier in my life. So, and this year I'm 18 or 19. So I had actually moved to Kitchener and was coming back to watch these games.
Okay.
And so I wasn't there, but I do remember pucks bouncing off of blue seats where right around where I used to sit. I'm thinking, Jesus, am I ever glad I'm standing up here?
It was a gong show, though.
It really was.
It was a throwback to because the Streetsville series with the Cullitons back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that
were
was
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when Pat Kelly comes in, and some
and
of
that's
those
the old
guys,
Barton, Skinner Chisholm, and
Yeah.
Frank Barth, and Betts, and guys like that, and those were nasty
Wars.
games
Yeah,
too. Those
yeah.
were absolute, and that's when we were sitting in those seats watching those games, and that was right around the time when a 14 or 15-year-old kid named Gretzky come and played in Stratford
Yeah.
with the Seneca Nats.
Sen,
And,
But I think Streetsville wanted to come in here and replicate that. I really do. I think they have.
They did.
I really did.
they didn't believe they could win, so
No,
if
I don't know if you remember, but there was a whole bunch of talk about who it was that was going to be playing in the final, because I don't know who they had in the semifinal on the
Pickering.
Pickering or somebody like that. But
The Pickering Panthers.
In one of their rounds, they actually stopped the series because of 137,000 fights and somebody assaulted somebody.
Yep.
And whoever it was they were playing, there was talk that they weren't going to continue the series.
Yes.
That they refused to they said you either deal with them or because we're not coming back, and there was talk about it was going to stop, and are they going to move Streetsville forward, or are they going to what's going to happen there? But we knew there was no secret, we knew before game 1 exactly what was going to go on. So it's
and their coach Rick Tarasuk admitted later on in the series, I don't have any control over these guys. We've tried suspending them. One guy in the Pickering series got an 8-game suspension. I think it was Dave Humphrey. I forget his name. But he got an 8-game suspension for kicking. They were nuts.
Yeah.
They were certified nuts. And I got the whole story. So the following year, you were done playing. The following year, Colin Honfeld, who played for them the year we beat them, came to us the next year. Somehow Denny brought him to Stratford, and he's like, those guys were absolutely nuts. Like he said, and they actually had a good team. They could skate, they could score. Now, they weren't going to beat us, but there's no way that it would have been, the Donnybrook that it was if they would have stuck to playing hockey, right? They had some strong guys. But they just chose to try and intimidate us, and that didn't work. And then I think it was after game 3, Bill McDougall said, yeah, we're trying to intimidate them, but they're too big and strong. We just got to stay out of the penalty box, because game 2 in Streetsville, we win 10-3. We get 9 power play goals. It was ridiculous. John Kastner said that 42% of our goals in the playoffs, we're on the power play. We're almost at a 50% clip out of our total goals. 42% of them are on the power play, because teams were just St. Thomas was taking penalties against us too, but they weren't being stupid about it.
playing hard.
They were playing very hard, and they were trying to get Emmer off his game, and they were taking penalties, and then they realized, okay, this is actually hurting us by being in the box, because we're going to get scored on. But the Derbies had 129 minutes in penalties. 3 times the Derbies ran at Merton in the first period. So they take 3 penalties in the first period. Boom, we're up 3-0. Then the Derbies captain, Paul Reedy, jumps Emmer after Emmer's stick accidentally clips him in the face. Just the guy loses his mind and jumps on Emmer. Emmer doesn't even take his gloves off. The referee tells him to stay down while Reedy's flailing away on him. And so Reedy's flailing away on him. Walt Morris jumps in to go Reedy, only to be tackled by Paul Richard. Emmer still has the gloves on. They all get thrown out. All 4 of them get thrown out of the game, and Emmer's still got his mitts on. He hasn't even thrown a punch yet. Like, what the hell is going on?
You want to protect those hands.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Good plan.
then as Reedy's leaving the ice, Denny's mouthing him off, and Reedy throws a punch at Denny, and thank God he missed. But they were lunatics. They were absolute lunatics. And then Kastner writes that Morris picked up Richard during the same scrum, picked up Richard, and Morris made like Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff as he lifted Richards on his shoulders and then slammed him to the ice. Like, just crazy stuff going on. Jeff Wetlaufer beats up Darren Worth. Bob McDougall, he's given a match penalty for spearing Irby, and he was suspended. So he's gone for the series. 54 goal scorer. There he is. Dean Reynolds. He had 8 games, so he couldn't play until game 3 or 4 of the series. But you get into game 3, we end up beating them 10-4. In warm-ups, Steve McDougall skates up to Pye and throws his gloves and his stick in Pye's. I remember this one. Throws his gloves and sticks into Pye's face. Pye pushes him back, and then they get into it. McDougall gets a 5-minute major for fighting, and Pye only gets a 2-minute roughing for defending himself.
And Pye's 15.
Pye's 15 years old.
15.
And this
Let's add that.
yeah, this guy's like, 18, 20 years old. And what happens? They get a 5-minute penalty major. So we go on the power play for the full 5 minutes. Heafy scores 2 power play goals. We're up 2-0. We're up 4-1 before the 10-minute mark of the first period. Not working out too well for them. But, yeah, just crazy. I could read through all these notes. Like, it was just they were not a tough team. We beat them on the board. We beat them on the ice. It just was not going to work for them. But tell the story about, and it was in game 3 when McDougall's coming out of the penalty box and he jumps Rexy. So tell that story.
There were already guys in the penalty box, and like the score was way lopsided. And Rexy might have been he may well have been the original Shoresy, right? Like,
Right.
Like, they may have modeled the character after him. So
Let's give that one to him.
yeah, let's give that to him. And so he's chirping at the Streetsville guy in the penalty box. We have a face-off just outside, and I'm in the middle. We can't even get the puck dropped because they're already like, you can tell Potvin's got something going over here beside me, and it's kind of like, and Rexy is like, he's like, I'll tell your girlfriend to show up early next time and bring something frilly, I'll autograph for her. It's like, and so they're trying to drag Potvin and this guy into the penalty box so the door opens, and then something else happens, and everyone's kind of with the guy, and then out of the box comes like, one of their dudes.
Right. Steve McDougall.
Yeah, and Rexy's he's half holding on to somebody, turned sideways anyway, and I see him coming, so it's like there's no way you're going to come in and like sucker punch him in the head or something. So I grab him. He's a big guy. Big dude.
Yeah.
So we kind of got going fast, and I'm glad that they gave me the landslide fighting in number 1, because this one is like we just stood there and punched each other for about like 35 seconds. I landed a handful of good shots, took a handful of good shots too.
Yeah.
Got
you had a nice shiner for our year-end team photo.
You did well in the photo op or whatever kind of thing. But, it was the same thing. It's like they're not going to, they just never got the message that they're not going to beat us because people are scared to play them. Nobody is scared of anybody here. Anybody here. It's like, it's like if you want to fight, we'll fight. You want to, like either way you're going to lose 10.
Right.
Either way you're going to lose 10-4.
And it wasn't like as if we would provoke them. Like we didn't play dirty or cheap shots.
No, that was
they
never
would
the
they
way.
would bring that sort of energy to the game, and we're like, all right, I guess this is how we're going to do it. But while that was all going on with you guys at center ice, you end up on your knees. You're in the front page of the sports section the next day. You and actually it was it was
There's a picture.
it was
of-
Hart,
yeah,
Steve Hart, sorry.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
And so there's a picture of you two. You guys are on your knees, and then you've got I think it's Walt and the guy that he was fighting. But on the other side of the ice, in front of our bench, then you've got leading scorer Bill McDougall, who's trying to goad Heath into a fight. McDougall comes at Heath, and Heath cross-checks him, like, right in the chin, like, gets him solid, and decks him. And so then McDougall loses his mind. He's got his gloves and his stick off. McDougall and Hart, they both had dropped their sticks and gloves. They go over to the Streetsville bench because the benches are side by side. They go over to the bench, and they're grabbing new sticks to use on Heafy, but then they were intercepted by the linesman. Like, it was absolutely, and that was where Ernie was, up on,
the top
ready
rope.
to do Jimmy Superfly, Snuka. Like, it was just an absolute gong show, but they brought it all on themselves. Like, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Of all the obviously one of the best teams that ever suited up in Stratford, for them to win a championship, it was an embarrassing end to that,
Right.
to an embarrassing effort on the other side of the ice.
Right.
When we've seen so many good playoffs.
Yeah.
Even you guys talk about the St. Thomas one.
Yeah,
or
it should have been
the
reversed.
Waterloo one the year
Yeah.
before, or years that you've seen Sutherland
Yeah.
Cups. To think that you can go into a rink and try to win a playoff series against a skilled team of veterans and play that way is just, it just doesn't cut it.
it's-
It doesn't cut it.
They had only lost. They hadn't lost at home all year, and they had bullied their way through the playoffs. So, to their defense, it was a successful recipe
It was working for them.
up
Yes, it
until
was.
they
And
ran
that's
into
not new.
us.
Like we referenced earlier, that's not new.
Right.
When Stratford went to Streetsville, it might have been 2 out of 3 years. In
Yeah,
the 70s.
78, 79, and
Yeah.
79,
It
77,
was
78, and 78,
yeah.
79.
It's
yeah.
too far back for me to remember
Right.
exactly.
Yeah,
but in
yeah.
the end, I remember they played them twice in
Yep.
the finals,
Yep.
or at least in
back
the,
to back.
In the
That's when they
OHLs.
brought back Pat Kelly to hold the fort and tune
Rod
them in.
Beilhartz.
Right?
Pat
Yes.
Spassky,
You know,
Yeah,
That
I gotta
was-
I gotta
that was
throw
such-
this in though. I had forgotten about this too. Emmer fought Darren Worth midway through the third period in that game 3. I forgot that he had got into a fight that game, but obviously he didn't start that. But was that's good that he was able to answer the bell and didn't get hurt, because he's way more valuable on the ice than he is fighting. Right, leave that to the other guys. But then we get into game 4 in Streetsville. We end up sweeping them. We win 11-5. We outscored them in that series 43-17 in 4 games. 26 power play goals. 60% of our goals that series were power play goals.
Which almost seems light, to be honest with you, because
crazy, yeah.
we painted a picture to everyone watching or listening to this podcast that they didn't spend any time in the series without somebody in the box. Because in fact, even from the get-go in game 2, they had a guy in the box for 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. And the game hadn't even started.
You know what I mean? So they started the game with a major penalty.
Yeah.
So-
Like it was just
But
laughable.
It's interesting. In a way, it's interesting that one of the gooniest teams you will ever find happened to run into maybe the best power play that Junior B's ever seen.
I would put us up against anybody with those numbers.
We've all seen some good power plays, but I
Right.
don't think, to your point earlier, Bully, when you made those adjustments and then Heafy showed up, and then all of a sudden you've basically got 50 goal scorers coming from
Crazy.
the other side of the rink. And, a team that's going to goon its way through you to win a series runs into, like I said, one of the best power plays this league's ever seen.
Now, in full disclosure, like, it was a different era. Goalies are bigger, they're better. We scored 169 goals in 21 playoff games. We averaged over 8 goals a game. That's tight checking. Like, everybody can get away. Yes, we had our nights against Listowel where we beat them 15-2 and stuff like that, but we were winning in the playoffs in double digits. Like
But these
was
were not.
unheard
I
of.
remember a lot of that year, and these goals were not. I mean, there were a couple that were shot from center ice, but
Right.
But most of them, like you heard the ding.
Yeah, they were
fairly
earned.
You could hear the ding on the way in
Yes.
several times, especially when either he or Heafy were shooting, because these guys just had a knack for finding corners of the net.
I gotta tip
Kinda
my
like
hat.
Magwood the other night, where the Stratford Irish were having trouble scoring on their chances, and all of a sudden this guy Zach Magwood just gets 2 chances in the high slot, and boom, it's 4-0.
He's worth the price of admission. That guy.
Certainly is.
I gotta just tip my hat here. We had 9 D1 scholarship guys off that team. 8 were drafted to the NHL. Heafy in 21 playoff games had 33 goals, 35 assists for 68 points, 17 power play goals in 21 playoff games, 3 shorthanded. Heafy averaged 3.23 points a game in the playoffs. Ridiculous. Emmer, in 21 playoff games, he averaged 3 points a game. Rexy had...
Just to point out that Emma had 3 points a game.
Yes.
And was
Second.
second on his team.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Then
That's fun.
You had Rexy, 21 games played. He averaged over 2 points. He had 2.19. And then Bully, you averaged 2 points a game. Like, wow. Like, that is some serious firepower.
And you think about Rexy, if you were to talk about when Rexy first came in, Rexy didn't come in to be a point-a-game player. Rexy came in to add stability to the defense, to be that big body to play against. Probably his defensive prowess was a little bit more, but for him to go out on offensive, like that just showed what that team was all about.
Yeah.
That team manufactured points everywhere in
Yeah.
the lineup. And then you go past those guys, there's a whack of guys that are getting, like, you're going 2 and 3 lines
Yeah,
deep.
like, I'm not even touching on Pat Murray.
Yeah, sure.
Bryn Gladding, Trevor Erb. Yeah. And
Seriously important players for our team.
yeah.
But like part of it is too, like we said, like having Nelson, right, like as the best player.
He was the main cog.
Well, no, but I mean he's the best player. He was the best player in junior B hockey. It's like
Sure.
There's no argument in that. Anybody
Yeah.
who was watching the games would be like, wow, you got that? Wow. But what it also created on top of like the power play we were able to develop was he's going to catch the attention. He's going to catch the D1 pairing and the best line you can try to match up
Right.
against him or whatever. And you're going to have a lot of trouble now with my line and Sean's line.
Exactly.
Because now we're playing against not your best line and maybe not your best pairing. And, like it's going to, like, you're going to have a tough time.
Yep.
It's like, the difference is, like, when people ask me what Nelson was like or what kind of junior B player he was when he was that young, he, to me, is exactly like when you watch Makar or, McDavid
Yeah.
or,
Matthews.
no, well, it's the skating. He's so superior in his skating
Yeah.
that you can check him all you want, but he's going to get loose.
Yep.
He's going to get loose 4 or 5 times a game, and it's like, once he gets loose, it's like there's not a help number you can call there. Right?
Like, after 1 or 2 strides,
He's
he was
gone.
in full flight.
He's gone.
Like, I've never seen a guy like, he's like McDavid, like the speed that he had.
Well, it's the 0 to 60 that always blows you away. In 3 strides, he's going faster than everybody on the ice.
Yeah, and that's what he was like as a junior B player, and like it just created another set of opportunities for our team.
Right.
It's like you pick your poison. Like,
And-
what do you want to do here? You want to load up against him and try to keep him to 2 points tonight?
Right.
call it a success. And it's like when someone else is going to hang 8 on you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
it was-
and
Remember,
he was-
Pi was talking about that last year when
Yeah.
we had him on. We're just, exactly what you were saying. It's like you can focus on one guy and the other guy's going to kill you.
There was just too many weapons for one team to hold us back in a 7-game series. You might get us once if you were lucky, you'd get us twice. There was no way you were getting 4 games off of that team. Now, we were blessed with health. We didn't have any major injuries. That is huge, because the 82-83 team against Henry Carr, they were decimated with injuries, right? And that's just the way that it goes. Sometimes you're healthy, sometimes you're not. So we were blessed not only with talent, a great gelled team, but we were healthy. We had a few nicks here and there. I know Emmer early in the season, he had a wrist injury, had strained tendons. Steve Nelson had that Charlie horse in the playoffs, but overall we were able to stay healthy, and that's huge that you didn't have to go to the well and bring up an inexperienced guy. We were able to just ride that wave, and we caught lightning in a bottle. But tell that story. So we win it all in Streetsville. We party on the way back on the bus because we knew we were going to win, so we're drinking on the way home. Tell us the story about when we get back to Stratford, what you did with your skates. John Kastner told that story, but I want to hear what you did. You ended up because it was your last junior B game.
Yeah.
And
I didn't necessarily have big aspirations of what I was going to do hockey-wise after here. It was like I was going to keep playing, but in many ways I was kind of like done a little bit. But I was wearing a pair of skates that I'd worn for like 2+ seasons, and I remember they used to sharpen them here in town at whatever the sports store, and a couple times the guys would say like, "Man, like you need to change those."
Titians, I believe.
Yeah,
Titians.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
You need to change those. Like it's like you're like one like stitch away from like your foot
on
falling
the
out of side.
plastic.
Got a quarter inch left to
Yeah,
play.
but yeah, all that stuff, right? And
Before interchangeable blades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we were on the back of the bus, we had coolers going on the back, and we were sort of knee deep in the hoopla.
Yeah.
And I just got an idea, because I was going to throw the skates out. So we pile out of the back of the bus, and we look down at the river. So we kind of doctored up the top of the Potvin, and I doctored up the top of the cooler or whatever. Put a couple Culliton flags and stuff in there. Lit the Culliton flags on fire. Threw the skates on top and pushed it out into the river.
Because it was a styrofoam cooler.
So
Yeah.
it's like you see this cooler floating out in there
On the Avon River.
and then all of a sudden I get this fantastic call like from the next spring, and they said like, on the annual dredge of the Stratford River, we get many unusual items, but one of the most unusual is a pair of skates reputed to belong to former Cullitons Warren Bullock. I have that picture. I have that picture downstairs in my record.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I was talking to Don MacArthur, the general, on Friday
General.
night, in between periods for the Chatham-Stratford game on Friday, and I told him that we were going to be seeing you today, and he said, and ironically, and somebody posted, I think it was you, posted the picture on Facebook.
Yes,
just
yeah.
today, but without the need of any kind of spark,
Yeah.
his brain, he remembers everything.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you see him, ask him about the picture he got taken of him with the black eye,
Yeah.
holding the trophy. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, my God,
Yeah.
that was 40 years ago. But
Yeah.
he just like that. Warren Bullock, oh, yeah, I remember the black eye
Yeah.
you had taken it with the, and like,
Yeah, that was what I did for Razor, because in the picture or whatever when we first got it, the one that's like Razor's hanging on my arm.
that was the closest I was going to get to it, right? So
Yeah, you weren't
You were
you
next
weren't
in
getting
line.
you weren't
Walt,
getting it next.
Walt wasn't handing it to me. Oh, love it. Love it. Well, Bully, Davey, it's been a pleasure having you guys on, man. Like, we could keep going. We're coming up on 2 hours now, and just thank you so much, guys, for both of you for coming on, telling stories. My God, we've had so much positive response from people. Like, my phone's been blowing up today. Guys are genuinely loving having former players on, like where we've had Paul Bart and Dan Forget, Colin Schmidt, Eric Anderson, Greg DeVries. Like, people just seem to resonate with yesteryear. And so Brian and I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
I'll tell you, it's 40 years ago, right? And to be able to sit down and rehash some of the stuff, it feels like yesterday.
Right.
And if I were to give advice to any of the kids that I've coached or my own kids, don't be too ready to give up on all this stuff.
Right.
It's such a fun, monumental time in your life, and you get to share it with 22 other guys
Right.
sitting beside you. It's a great experience, and thanks for the opportunity to rehash some of this
Oh,
stuff.
my pleasure. Because
Awesome to see this guy right here. I'll tell you
the
that.
the spawn that is come off of all of this, like, you know, we do the top 50. One of Bully's you know, hockey buddies sees it, starts busting his chops. Bully had no idea about it because I couldn't get a hold of him. And so then, you know, I end up finding him on LinkedIn. We connect through there. You know, I reconnect with Pete McMenemy, my captain from St. Thomas. We start up. Mike Pierce brings to my attention. Love Piercy. You know, he's another, you know, black ace like myself. And,
He's
you know,
living the
Dave-
life, isn't he?
Oh my God! When I grow up, I want to be like Mike Pierce down in Florida, man. But Piercy said to me, he said, "Razor, it's 40 years, not this summer, but next summer." And he said, "Let's do a 40th anniversary." And I said, "That is an awesome idea." So Bully,
great idea.
yeah, Bully, Piercy, and myself. I've talked a little bit to Jeff Ernest. He's like, "Well, I'm going to be doing a lot of camping. I don't know how much I'll be able to help."
Classic Ernst right there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll
we'll have to reach out to the hockey club and put
100%.
some effort into getting as many of those guys together.
yeah, exactly. And so we're
St. Cyr's another guy that keeps an eye on things, and
great
we
guy.
talked a little bit about him, but the 2 years that he spent here, what a tremendous guy.
Yeah.
What a, you know, and one of my funny stories or my memories where St. Cyr lived with Jimmy Hughes at the MacArthur's.
okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
one Saturday we went to practice and it was a snowstorm. Well, General and Donna MacArthur snowed out of the house. Me and Nelson and Jimmy and St. Cyr were snowed into their house. It was
Drinking General's beer.
Yeah, it might have been a bit of a show. That,
It was shortly after that the general stopped taking billets.
yeah.
Well, the next year, then Rexy moved in. He took Jimmy Hughes' spot. So
Yeah.
that's how Saints and Rexy became good buddies, was living with the General. But
Right.
Took the general to a new level when Rexy came.
Right.
Let me tell you.
oh yeah, yeah. I wasn't sure if he was out in L.A. You know, with him working with the Kings with Blakey and Emmer, and he said, "No, dude, I'm still in Brantford." So
I'd be
he's-
remiss too if I didn't get to mention Todd Gregory a little bit. Todd was, you know, he was just a solid player here. Went on to play for the Petes and whatever. Him and I became closest of friends for
Nice.
a couple of years and got to know his family. And again, another great character person that
Right.
that Denny brought in that, you know, got a little bit of a start here and then moved on, had a good junior A career and lived in Peterborough after that.
Right.
Great hockey player.
Yeah.
Good guy too.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks again. I appreciate both of you coming on. And like Les Vaders always says, it's okay not to be okay, folks. Just start the conversation. So thanks again to all of our viewers, everyone for tuning in to the Chirpers. I apologize for not getting to the rest of all of our
True. So yeah,
sponsors.
just, you know, for those who were waiting for us to cover the other stuff, you know, sorry, we just, you know, sometimes we get talking, you know,
I felt like I was in a hockey locker room again,
Like the priest
going
used to say,
over, right?
like the priest used to
Soaking
say,
it
when
up.
I start a sermon, sometimes I just get too lazy to stop. So anyway, next week we're going to be doing the Go JHL playoff preview show.
Yes.
So it's the last week of the regular season. The game just started up at the Willie tonight, the old school Listowel Stratford game.
Right.
Nice Perth County matchup. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on, guys. This has been a great show, and you know, best of the luck moving forward.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Peace out.
That was fun.
Yeah, right there, is there?
Yeah.